So Michael, did we do a good job teasing you?
Oh, you're making me blush. You're making me blush. No,
right,
Am, you did great. You did great. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you. Thank you.
Cool. Michael, thanks for joining this Friday episode of AWS On Air. And I hear you're about to give us some more information, a demo about number one, Amplify, and then a new CDK toolkit that utilizes or allows developers to utilize GraphQL. So did I miss anything? Is that about hit the mark?
It's a little something.
Okay.
I think you're super close. You're super close. We're going to be talking about Amplify.
Yes.
We're going to be talking about the CDK.
Yes.
I always like to say that front-end developers, historically, you would think AWS, and you're like, what? That has nothing to do with my field of work.
It's for the ops people.
I like to completely demystify that notion.
All right.
Front-end developers, full stack is here. Generative AI, as we were talking about with NVIDIA, is here. So I'm going to be showing you how front-end developers can really integrate with AWS through the use of Amplify and in particular AppSync.
Perfect.
Yeah, cloud infrastructure is not necessarily front-end mobile developers' everyday life, right? Provisioning stuff out, getting their apps to communicate with backends. Typically, you just handed an API endpoint or a GraphQL endpoint, and you said go, right? Like you're not the one who's provisioning that out necessarily. But it's easy. That's what Amplify does, right?
Well, I think this is going to be interesting because we all know AM is more on the developer side. Michael, you're more on the developer side. I am more on exactly what AM just said, provisioning infrastructure. I am an infrastructure guy, so I'm excited to learn more about this. Let's start and make sure all of our listeners know what Amplify is.
Oh, for sure. And I like to set the stage in Amplify isn't one thing. Okay, Amplify is like 5 different things here. Because you have a hosting service. So again, front-end developers, you're going to know what I'm talking about. If you're used to amazing providers like Netlify and Vercel, right? And you want to simply host your front-end applications. You don't have to set up an S3 bucket and CloudFront. Feel free to do it that way if you want. But if you want an easy way to integrate with GitHub, we have Amplify Hosting, which is going to make it a one-click deploy and even has infrastructure as code tooling as well. But that's only one piece of the puzzle here. If you want to set up your backend services like a database or auth, and again, those S3 buckets, you have options such as the Amplify console, which is a nice graphical user interface. You click on the buttons and engage with the services that you want, or you can use the Amplify CLI. Now, today, I'm going to be showing you something new where we can use the AWS CDK. So that way, if you're a front-end developer and you're writing your front-end code in TypeScript, you can now write your backend code in TypeScript. That's what the CDK is. So instead of clicking through the AWS console, now you have reproducible steps where you can deploy your backend services.
Yeah, Michael,
it's great.
I'm one of these I hesitate to say it, but I'm one of these full kind of stack devs. Because I'm way more on the back end side than I am the front end, but I can commit some crimes on the front end. I'm not a UX engineer. I'm not even close to that, but I know my way around JavaScript. I know my way around Angular in particularly. But I'm more comfortable provisioning out infrastructure as code through some other of the tools, right? But Amplify, traditionally has done a lot of that provisioning out for you with the CLI that you're saying. You come into the CLI, Amplify, add auth, and then it creates a bunch of CloudFormation for you that you also deploy out through the Amplify CLI. But a lot of us, we like to use other infrastructure as code tools. So you're telling me you figured out a way to do it with CDK.
It's amazing. And actually, I am a mere instrument. The Amplify team and the AppSync team
are giving really you full credit.
It was actually all me. It was
all by yourself. Yeah.
Amplify has always shook hands with the CDK, but now we're making that partnership a little bit further, and it's more of like a hug now. If we started off as a handshake, we're hugging. Okay. We're gonna have L3 constructs, which are these high level. Think of them as modules, for Amplify to integrate with your CDK projects, and we'll see what that looks like when we get into the code.
And all CDK is just a lot of code that you write that actually goes out and provisions your infrastructure for. There's a lot behind it. There's a whole, thing that going on, but you can understand it as I get to now write TypeScript or Python instead of
Right.
JSON or YAML, and that will go out and provision infrastructure in my AWS
Because a
account.
lot of times when people mention infrastructure as code, you think CloudFormation, you think Terraform, and you're writing exactly what you just said, JSON or YAML, kind of like pseudo scripts to build that stuff out. But if you want to build that stuff out in a programming language, the CDK allows you to do that same type of thing, but with more programming developer type languages.
Michael,
Am I right?
Receipts here.
Exactly. Oh, I guess some love in the crowd. Thank you so much. Yeah, you can catch me at odd hours. I live an asynchronous lifestyle, as I like to say. So when I'm creating my code, it could be at any time.
I think that those are some of your friends on the Amplified team giving you the full credit for
full credit.
all the innovations with CDK.
I wish I could take all the credit, but it is a team effort. It's a good time. So we do have a demo today, but here's the thing. I don't like to show the finished product right away, at least. I like to show how the sausage is made, meaning I like to walk through how we got to the end result. So with your permission, I can go in and share my screen and show you what we have, but I also want to sort of take you step by step on how I got to the end of today's demo. How's that sound?
AM, is that all right with you?
No one's ever asked me permission to do anything before.
You for permission, AM.
Me? I've got no power here.
Let's go. Let's do it. Sounds great.
Perfect. Let's go ahead and get my screen on here. Now, this is kind of small already, so I'm going to bump this up a little bit. Little backstory for us, folks. My wife loves crossword puzzles, okay? So I like the fact that as she does them, it's sort of meditative zen for her, okay? Unfortunately, when she's doing her crossword puzzle, that's typically when she tells me to do things like the dishes and to take out the trash and pick up after the dogs and all those other things. So I was thinking on those off moments, rare occasions where I do forget those and she maybe needs a little zen to come off of me not paying attention to what she said. What if I created a crossword search for her specifically with things that are lovely and that would definitely calm her down? Things like Lambda and serverless, right? These are terms that are for sure going to make her life better. So we have Amplify in here and AppSync.
My heart's going pitter patter.
You
keep saying it.
Michael, I've been doing these live streams a long time, and my sister and my grandmother and my mother, they all watch me, and they have an impression of me. And the words that you just typed out is almost verbatim the impression they do. They go, Lambda, serverless, amplify, Lambda. That's their impression of me, Michael.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah. So yeah, we definitely have this crossword that we can generate. We could add in some more words in our free time here. But when I click on generate grid, notice that I have a 10 by 10 grid. I'm going to go ahead and say that this is going to be our lovely search. Now, when I generate this, I get this word search all set up for us. Now, let's see. I'm going to see who can be the first one to like snag one here. I'm looking for
AppSync.
I saw AppSync.
Oh my goodness. I
AppSync.
I really struggle with these.
I thought I had Slovakia for a second, but that's not it.
Third row from the bottom.
Oh, AppSync. Okay. So I have this going in any direction, which is really cool. And if I click on generate grid, I'm going to throw you off for a second since you're so fast. I can regenerate it.
Whoa.
Right?
Ooh, Amplify. Third from the left.
This is ridiculous.
Go down.
Serverless is right at the bottom line.
It is.
Oh, it is.
That's an easy one to find.
I know it's 10 by 10. So down at the bottom, we get our results here. The problem is that if I were to refresh the screen, all these results are gone, right? They're not persisted. I would love to have the ability to create, read, update, delete, and list my word searches. So that way, when I come up with the one that really just, like you said, gave her those butterflies, I can always come back to it. Now, the cool thing is that this isn't really going to be saved, right? The end result is that I click on this print grid And I know it's going to be small for the audience here, but you have the ability to print out just the portion that you need. You have the crossword search in the word bank. Little CSS fun. But let's go ahead and bring this to life by incorporating a backend stack.
So this is all generated in the browser currently. It's not persisted anywhere.
It isn't. As soon as I refresh, that lovely
gone.
search is going to be lovely gone.
You lost it. It's an it's immutable, I guess. It's just gone forever.
So from a front-end perspective, this is great, right? But from a back-end perspective, if you're a front-end developer, this is scary. This is where you're like, some other team needs to be helping me out.
Yeah.
Because I need a database. I need an API. How do I put all that stuff together? So what we're going to be doing here is creating a CDK application. Now, if you haven't done one before, welcome to the stream. We're going to be walking you through how to create a CDK application.
That's wonderful.
Jeff, have you made one before?
I've seen demos, not myself. And actually, I've made demos using CDK, but not in my personal life.
Oh, gotcha.
I wouldn't put it in my crossword puzzle if that's what you're asking.
Jeff is your audience, Michael. You target audience right here.
Talking to my people right here. As you notice, I just went ahead and created that CDK backend folder. Inside of that, we're going to run this init command. Now, as AM mentioned, you can write this in Python and Go and Java and all these other fun languages. I like to consider myself a full stack developer, so I do TypeScript across the board here, folks.
Nice.
Cool. So we have that in place.
Real quick, while we're loading this, Lux Scientific in the comments was asking if this will be available later on, video on demand. Yes, all these episodes are available to watch after. We are live right now, but these will go live on YouTube and I believe Twitch as well as separate episodes. So thanks, Lux.
Yeah,
go ahead, Michael.
Great question. So this is sort of your entry point here. Now, as I mentioned, the star of the show is actually going to be this L3 construct. And all you have to do is install it using familiar tooling, NPM in this case.
Yep.
It's under the AWS domain and is this GraphQL API construct. Now, we're saying GraphQL, right? But really it's AppSync.
Yeah.
That's the star of the show here. And Amplify incorporates AppSync really well into its stack, but it is its own service. And a lot of folks sort of may get that confused.
Yeah, Michael, can you explain that? We hear GraphQL and then AppSync. Explain the difference and what is what.
Yeah, definitely. And we just took our drinks at the same time.
I know. We're so in sync. We're so in sync, Michael.
It's like AM and then I'm just like PM.
Well, Michael is the M, by the way. Alan Michael's my first name. So
well, then there we go.
You're in there.
AppSync is going to be a fully managed GraphQL. Now, let me break down what that means because fully managed incorporates a lot. You don't have to set up a server. We do all that for you. We give you HTTP. That's going to be your CRUD operations. But we take it a step further. We give you WebSockets out of the box as well. So I'm going to try and talk and type here.
It's so weird because front end and mobile devs they just love operating and maintaining servers. I'm so surprised y'all went with a managed service, Michael.
Michael, I got a quick question. So GraphQL AppSync.
Yes.
As a non-developer, my understanding of GraphQL is the ability to maybe get exactly what you need from an API call versus having to make maybe many single calls. Did I summarize that or fill me in, educate me?
You're right. So the beauty of GraphQL is REST is great. And I don't want to take anything away from REST. The idea is that when you make a REST call and say you have books and those books need authors, what you typically end up with is a very common looking endpoint /books/authors. And then you want the specific author, so /ID. Right? This can be very tricky to maintain over time. It doesn't really scale well, and you have to have really great documentation.
Yeah.
GraphQL is great in the sense that if books is in one database and authors is in its own database, one single call can hit both of those endpoints up while each endpoint is living independently from one another. Right? Gotcha. Let the graph of GraphQL do the work for you. Unfortunately, when it comes to GraphQL, writing your resolvers, your business logic, right, is tricky. But the benefit is that with AppSync, we do all of that for you. if you tell us what your schema is, this schema.graphql as I'm about to create, and you say, I want to authorize my API with a very simple API key, which will automatically get generated for me. Using that, it will look at your schema and create all of those mappings and resolvers on your behalf. We even take it a step further, but I don't want to get too far ahead of myself.
That's fine. Cool. All right. Yeah. Understood.
Yeah. Can I take a stab, Michael, real quick, at a very simplified version?
You can go full Buffy and take whatever stabs you want.
Full Buffy. I love
Good,
Buffy.
Good reference.
Sarah Michelle Gellar is my Buffy. To me, GraphQL, there's a lot of benefits to it, but at the most basic, or there's a few features of GraphQL, but I get to create a query in a descriptive language, send that to the server side. The server side knows how, as Michael said, to resolve, right? Those are what the resolvers are. I say I need this data, and this data. The server side knows how to go retrieve that data from wherever that data is because I've created that. And then it sends an amalgamation, a collection of all those different data points that I requested back down to the browser or the mobile app or wherever I'm consuming as a client application. What this does is it pushes a lot of the networking right off to the server, where it's likely going to be a lot faster than a client application. That's one of the benefits, right?
I love it.
But it also lets me consolidate and not have to know, as a client application, all the different endpoints that I have to track on a REST API, for example, like Michael mentioned too.
Definitely. I didn't want to tease this too much, but as you come down here, this is how you create your AppSync API. Okay. So instead of clicking through the console and saying, I want to go ahead and create a schema and create an API key, let it expire after 7 days, I can write my code. I can put this into version control. And next time I want to create an AppSync API, it's right there for me.
That's awesome, man. We've got some questions. Some of these I'm not real clear on. We'll go with the first one real quick. Does this use an Excel database format to search and pull data? I don't.
Oh, I love that question. Yeah, it's basically if we're resolving this data, what are we writing this in? Okay. It's not Excel, meaning something like SQL to go ahead and write those queries. At the lowest level, we're working with something called Velocity Template Language. It was made by Apache, VTL. It's kind of ugly. It's not the best thing to look at, if I'm being honest. So the AppSync team said, you know what? If we're generating it for you, if we're generating your resolver logic for you, we're going to write it in VTL. Okay? But we're not going to let you all go through that pain point. Instead, you can write your resolvers in JavaScript. You can write your resolvers in TypeScript. So now you have these things, these functions that look like Lambda functions, but really they're just making direct calls from AppSync to DynamoDB, to awesome third-party providers, MongoDB, to Aurora and SQL databases, right? You can make, through the use of these resolvers, you have the ability to write Lambda-like functions that have no cold starts, that are super fast, memory effective, etc.
Yes. And so then in the example you were giving earlier, the same person asks about, so the books are in one database, the names of the authors are in another, waiting to be assigned to a book, like a Calibre library meta tag edit. I'm not sure what that is, to be honest. But maybe you could give a little bit more expounding on the books
I think
and authors example.
Yeah. So, right. If we say we have books and authors, two different databases here. When you make these connections, and again, AppSync and Amplify will automatically manage these connections for you. You just tell it that they are in fact connected. I'm not familiar with Calibre library meta tag either, but what I can say is that will automatically be handled on your behalf. And if you wanted to do something custom, you absolutely could.
Nice. Yeah, you were on one of the Game Day Show episodes with MongoDB with me, Michael, and we were talking about the MongoDB resolver.
Definitely. So I have my schema here. And if you think about it, like you might be wondering, well, how did I come up with this schema? Well, let's look back at our application here, right? What I love about AppSync is that it's very UI driven. I want to persist data. I have a title, columns, row, and then I have a bunch of words inside of my word bank, right? Well, if I'm thinking about it from an API perspective, that's exactly what I need. Nothing more, nothing less than those fields right there. So when it comes to my schema, I'm like, well, if I'm creating multiple word searches, automatically generate a unique ID for me, and then give me the name, the columns, the rows in the word bank so that I can persist that inside of DynamoDB. And you might be wondering, well, where is this database created at? Right? Because I'm not specifying anything with DynamoDB, but fortunately, this app model says go ahead and create not only a DynamoDB database, but also create all of the create, read, update, delete, and list queries and mutations for me in addition to those WebSocket endpoints. Super powerful. And in my case, I'm authorizing my API with an API key. So for that auth rule, it's essentially public. It's a public API key. So members that have that, which is basically anybody because it's public, can do any of those operations. Now, say I only wanted them to do like read from the API, right? I can get really granular with that and just come over here and say read.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, I like to think so. But this is it. This is my API. Show's over, folks. No, it's
We'll see you next Friday at the
Right.
same time.
Something you just said though stood out to me, Michael, while you were talking too. You said AppSync is UI driven, and that's another really great benefit of GraphQL, because data stored in a database is not necessarily stored in a UI friendly way, right? Like it's stored in a database friendly way, and you may be utilizing that database for more things than just drawing a UI, right? So GraphQL comes in and lets you assemble how you need the data presented to be able to draw a piece of UI. That's another kind of big benefit, I think. Right?
It's actually underrated in the fact that you're right. DynamoDB has its own syntax for storing data. Right? AppSync and UIs each have their own way of sorting that data. So that transformation layer is automatically handled. And again, that's what we mean by a managed service going to work for us here. So I went ahead and I created that function or that API, right? I hooked it up over in my main stack file. I gave it a name, word search Twitch, seems appropriate for today. So I'm going to go ahead and deploy this. Now, deploying this API is no more than running a command, which is npx AWS CDK. Can you think of the word to deploy? Deploy. It's a good job, class. I'm actually using an AWS profile. I'm cool, and I set up AWS SSO. So the name of that is going to be Focus Otter Sandbox. Now we're sort of off to the races here. This is going to go ahead and do its thing. The beauty, we are live here, folks. What do we have here? We can't have backend stack. Why aren't we able to be called that?
Did you mean backend capital S stack?
Right. I think I know where. This would be in my bin / backend stack. Yeah, it's like, who are you? You're right. Was it
backend stack? Who's she? Yeah.
I think it's hanging out with Jennifer AI.
I'm gonna make it catch on. It's gonna happen.
Sounds like a fast food sandwich. The backend stack is back.
The backend stack is back. All right.
Wow.
Thank you for catching that.
Boy band's having a hot moment right now. They're on fire.
It's showing me the deployment. It's showing me all the auth rules that are going to take place. I think I'm working with an older version of the CDK. So I might get a warning in red. Don't be alarmed, folks. Don't be alarmed. We should deploy just fine. But yeah, this is all we need to get our full stack API connected to a database set up. Now, we have the front end.
The CDK is deploying CloudFormation stacks in the background for you. So you could have done this in CloudFormation or whatnot, but the CDK is allowing you to do this automatically through code, just like you showed.
Yes. Yes, I could have done it with CloudFormation. You're absolutely right. That would have been a very easy example to do. /s. So we have this deploying for us. Now, assuming this all goes well, looks like we're almost done here. The next step is to say, well, how does my front end actually talk to my backend? Because it doesn't just know just because I deployed my CDK application, right? That's where the Amplify libraries come into play, which is another one of that 5-headed dragon that I was talking about earlier. Amplify does it all, folks. So
as we're waiting, I just wanted to all of our new viewers, if you've happened to join the stream in the last 10 or 15 minutes, this is AWS On Air. We do this every Friday noon Pacific time, and right now we're talking to Michael, who is demoing some Amplify CDK features with us. And while we're waiting, Nick or Am, can you bring up the survey link? If you could take a few minutes to take a survey on what you think about the show, we'd appreciate it to help us kind of tune our content. But this was a perfect spot to do this little jig as the CDK was going. So, Michael, keep on going.
Well, I was going to say, one of my favorite things about Amplify too, before you jump into more, Michael, is that you made the connection there between Amplify doesn't necessarily call it AppSync, it calls it GraphQL, right? And Amplify does that with all of its categories of functionality, right? Because most people coming to Amplify are not necessarily well-versed in every single AWS service that we've ever put out, right? And instead they're looking for something like auth. It's not called Cognito in Amplify, it's called auth, but it uses Cognito, right? So same with GraphQL, it's using AppSync. It's what I love, the categories. It's really tuned to developers and not to, like AWS only experts, right?
Perfect. Yeah, I love that about Amplify. You're right. There's, instead of Lambda, right? We don't say deploy a Lambda function and get it provision. It literally is Amplify add function. We don't say set up Cognito pools and user pools and identity pools. No, it's Amplify add auth. Because at the end of the day, as a front-end developer, you're looking for familiar language. So that way you can feel safe and secure in adding it to your application. When we start mixing front-end developers with AWS jargon, well, it's easy to kind of feel left out. And Amplify really takes the stance of making developers, front-end developers in particular, feel welcome when they sort of join this ecosystem. But we are deployed here, and you can see I have some outputs. It's letting me know some things about my AppSync API, right? We have our GraphQL endpoint listed right here. I'm actually going to copy this for a second. We have our API ID, our API key. This is great. And if you notice in my front-end application, I have the Amplify libraries already installed. And the only command that I really need is configure, amplify.configure. It's like, yo, give me some things here. Give me your GraphQL endpoint. I'm going to go ahead and paste that in just like that. What region did you deploy this in? Right? What is your authentication type? And then lastly, the API key, which I believe is just stubbed in there. So I better grab the actual API key. Perfect. So we have this in place. Now our front end is integrated. Now our front end knows how to work with our now deployed backend stack. So I can head over to my UI and I can start making these API calls. And these are no more than what front-end developers are already used to. I can come over into this index file. This is a regular Next.js application. It's written in TypeScript. So I can feel all warm and fuzzy inside. And this is what it took to get that front-end UI set up. Now, for folks just joining us, I just wanted to give you a quick update. We're looking for a title. We're looking for columns and rows. And when I come over here and say things like Jeff, and then we have Michael, and then we have our amazing ASL interpreter, we have Olivia in here, then I can generate a grid. Now, sorry, Michael, you didn't make the cut because you're not 6x6. You didn't fit.
You could have done Alan Michael.
I purposely left you out.
That's fine.
Kidding.
That's fine. I understand. I'll leave.
Please don't. So here we go, right? We have everyone in tune here. Jeff, I don't see you, Jeff.
I don't see backwards.
Oh, maybe it's backwards. That's what threw me off. I was like,
yeah, and Jeff is in the middle going up.
Okay, got it.
Yeah.
Here. Perfect.
Yeah.
So that's what we're doing. We're trying to make my wife happy here, folks, and make sure she has an amazing word search. So that way, when I deploy this, she can click on print grid, and she has this amazing time, and I can get back to doing all the chores. that I forgot to do. Unfortunately, we need to persist this inside of a database. So when I click on Save Grid Details, nothing actually happens. I'm clicking on it now, and it's not doing anything.
It's like the UI that I create.
It's like, what? Why isn't this working?
It looks good, but
Yeah, it doesn't look good when I do it. But
So my first sanity check is to list out items in our database. Now I should get back an empty array, right? So I'm going to say, hey, when this application first loads, go ahead and use the API category from the Amplify libraries. Pull those in. We're going to call the GraphQL portion of this API. We have the choice between GraphQL and REST. In this case, when we say GraphQL, we pass in an object and we say, I want to list out this list word searches query. Now, there's a problem here. This variable isn't defined anywhere. There's no idea for me to know where this list word search query is.
From?
Yeah, we have it here. Unfortunately, if I click on this, it's going here, but how did we get to this point? What we can do, let's say that I pulled that out of the oven too soon, so I'm going to delete that part. Let's create that from scratch. We have our API ID, which we haven't made use of just yet. It is, where are you? Here? Right there. If I grab that and I head back over into maybe a new terminal, we'll go into the root of our project here. I'm going to run this command. First and foremost, I'm going to tell it that this is an AWS profile because, again, I'm not using my default profile. This is my Focus Otter sandbox. And then I have the npx AWS, at AWS Amplify /CLI. And I wanted to automatically generate the code for my backend API. Hey, CodeGen, can you add that for me? And then the region I'm working with is US East 1, as we just saw. And the API ID is going to be -- API ID. And then I'll paste it in just like so. This should result in a sort of step-by-step box for us inside of our application. It looks like I have an existing file here. I'm just going to get rid of that real quick. I love doing live demos because you get to see all the mistakes that I'm making along the way. So we have that. It's asking me, do you want to generate this stuff for JavaScript, iOS, and Android? Because what I didn't mention is Amplify will work across web and mobile. Awesome. It's JavaScript, but what kind of JavaScript? It's React. It's going to pull in those credentials. And it's not finding US East 1. Did I make another mistake here?
Michael, I'm not your only fan in chat, by the way.
Do I have some fans?
Yeah, you got a fan. Robert Tables.
Oh, Bobby Tables.
Yeah.
I will never drop you. So.
Wow.
I like it.
That wasn't good? I thought that was good.
No, it was wonderful.
I thought that was so good that it took my breath away.
Let me try this again here. So we have JavaScript. We're going to make these queries. There we go. I deleted it too soon. Let's try this one more time where we have our API ID. It's JavaScript. It's React. It's looking for this region here, and I just can't find it. I wonder if I deployed it to a different region. I should look at that.
Which almost always happens in a live environment, like a workshop or something.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Of course.
Do I want to choose a different one? No.
I wouldn't blame you.
That's okay. Let's see here, because it's for sure in US East 1.
Yeah, it says in the.
That's okay. Let's just pick one of these. It's not liking that, but you know what? That's okay, because I come prepared and I pull things out of the oven as need be.
Are you going to go little Julia Childs on us?
I don't know who that is, but I'm assuming it's a chef.
Yeah.
Okay.
Julia Childs. Okay. Go ahead.
I'm really bad at references. So we got that taken care of. What I'm going to go ahead and do here is show you what got generated when we run that command. I have our front end, and here's our back end right here. I have our front end. Once you run that command and all those queries, mutations, and subscriptions get generated, you get this lovely code. Now, note that I didn't have to write this. As a front-end developer, I get scared when I have to write GraphQL mutations. They're tricky for me.
Yes, chef.
And then when it comes to making my app sync and TypeScript types, that also gets tricky, right? I love writing JavaScript, but I love the safety of TypeScript. So why not just have the TypeScript types generated for me? I get that for free as well. Amplify generates all of that good stuff for me. So the nice thing, and just to test this all out here, I'm going to copy this file, or this folder rather, come back into my application, and give this a nice little paste. And hopefully everything got taken care of just fine.
We're looking at TypeScript, gentleman Jack. That's some TypeScript code that Michael's writing for us right now. Chat also had your back, Michael. I think you may have had a profile issue, right? Your AWS profile. Maybe you didn't deploy through CDK with the profile, and you only changed the profile when you did code gen, but I'm not sure.
Oh, that would work. That is. See, thank you, chat.
Chat's the best.
Chat is the best.
Was that AI Harris? Good job.
Yes.
He's the best. He really is. He's one of the awesome members on the Amplify team here. So I have this set up. Let's kind of walk
Jack,
through.
this is not the only language that Amazon uses.
No, it is not. It is not.
Answered the question.
When the application loads, we're going to list our items from DynamoDB. We're not going to have any, hopefully. But when I save, we should see some data come back, some JSON data that we can work with. So that way we know that it's persisted inside of DynamoDB. Now, as a UI developer, you love this because at this point, you can do whatever you want with the data. So what I'm going to do is run through this, but I'll open up the console this time. Here is my lovely console. Open that up, and what we should see here is a nice big empty array. So we'll give it a refresh. Our application loads twice when we're in dev mode. That's why you see this here, but you get this. And I never did a console.log random array. This is proof that we're going to DynamoDB. And in fact, if I look at my network tab and run this one more time, we should be able to get that data here. It's so large, I don't know where to get it. There we go. So here's GraphQL call being made. Here is the data, and you can see that items is in fact an empty array. Now let's fix that and add one. I promise you all that when we add items to our database, what we end up with is going to be a general unique ID or a unique ID that is generated. So if I say something like, make wife happy, goals. So I come up here, and we're going to say that this time we're actually going to have a Halloween theme here with pumpkins and witches and scarecrow. Is that more than 10 words? I don't know. And scary lights. I'm very creative here, folks. If I come in here, we can
gourds. How about some gourds?
Gourds? That would be a good one. We can come in here and we have our word bank at the bottom. Great. However, what happens when we click on save? We'll go to our network tab. We'll click on save. We hit up GraphQL, and when we come down here, we have a unique ID because this was sent over to DynamoDB. The way to prove that is if I give this a refresh. Sure, my UI isn't updated yet, but as a front-end developer, you're happy because now when you look at this item here, this array isn't empty.
Still there.
We have items. We're persisted, and indeed, my wife is happy.
Just like the item, Michael, you persisted and you got this working for us.
Well, I mean, thanks to the chat. They were helping me along the way.
That's true. That's true. This is awesome. I mean, that was fast too. Just getting a back end to persist data from the front end was what, like less than 30 minutes?
I would say, and take out the time where we're just chatting and having fun with everybody.
Oh, you didn't want to do that. You wanted to take that out.
This repo is available. We'll go ahead and link it out so that way you all can play with this, watch the stream later on, walk through the steps, set up your profiles correctly, unlike myself. And then you can also generate crosswords as well.
Yes, please do check this out. This is actually really, really amazing. Like I said, I think you're understating what you did, Michael, but
this sounds like a perfect workshop or builder session at reInvent or a summit or something. Because
yeah, manager, if you're listening, you heard it here first.
Yeah, you can clip that and then just send it to whoever needs to approve your travel.
Yeah, there we go. Perfect. Well, thanks for having me. This has been fun.
Yeah, Michael, thanks. Anything anybody should check out other than the GitHub repo that will get dropped in if it hasn't already been dropped in?
You can actually check me out at reInvent. Actually, I have 2 sessions going on. We're going to be taking this example one step further, and we're going to say, you know what? I am not the most creative person. Hey, Jenny AI, I want to ask her, through the use of Bedrock, of course, to give me 20 words based off of a theme, maybe Halloween. And all those words will come back. And that way I don't have to sit here and ponder over what the right, maybe trick-or-treating words are. I think that's the next step here. But we're going to be talking about AppSync and generative AI in my session. And then we also have a What's New with AppSync, which is going to go over all of these fun releases that we had throughout the year and sort of get everyone caught up.
All right, go reserve your seats now because that is open, and those seats will fill up because Michael is incredible. I live every day like it's Halloween, Michael, so I'll be there in spirit if nothing else. Thank you very much for coming in and showing.
Thank you, Michael. That was great.
Oh, for sure. Thanks for having me.
We will.